everyone, and in this video I'm going to be discussing my week on food dye. Now, just a trigger warning, this video does mention sick, so if you are negatively affected by that or have emetophobia, then you may want to skip that part of the video. But I have a food dye sensitivity, and this is where consumption of food dyes can trigger a variety of neurological, behavioural and psychiatric symptoms. And it's relatively common in the Tourette community and can affect people with other conditions as well, and can exacerbate symptoms of pre-existing conditions but also cause other symptoms to arise. Now, I was accidentally consuming food dye for a week when I was 12. My food dye sensitivity was found at the age of 3 by my mum, but at the age of 12 I got put on a medication called risperidone to try and manage the tics, and that's an anti-psychotic. But unfortunately, when I started taking it, I experienced some very sudden and severe side effects, and these included constant crying, anxiety, panic attacks, severe light sensitivity where I couldn't look at the TV screen without sunglasses and I was squinting. It also triggered numbness in half the body and especially my face, and I also couldn't sleep because as soon as I drop off to sleep, I panic due to the anxiety and panic attacks. And we contacted my psychiatrist, but unfortunately they just put it down to stress. But we kind of knew it wasn't that because I had just started risperidone, and it wasn't a coincidence that as soon as I was on the medication, this began. I did have to have a few days off school because of that, but I eventually did go back in, but I only lasted a few hours because I remember I was very reluctant to go in because of the anxiety, and then I went into the pupil support centre and immediately just started crying, and then I had to be sent home because the side effects of vomiting and numbness in half the body were too severe. Because of that, we went to the walk-in centre, and the walk-in centre is where we could see a doctor quickly. So we did that. The nurse wanted me to see the doctor as soon as possible because she noticed that I was shaking so much because of the anxiety, and the doctor just said, obviously, go off the medication. And we were thankful for that because my psychiatrist just thought it was stress, but didn't really tell us what to do about it. We then realised that the medication contains a food dye called copper complexes of chlorophyllin, and that is a green food dye that I was very sensitive to. And thankfully, when I came off the risperidone, the severe neurological and psychiatric reaction did stop, but my tics also came back more severely as the premonitory urge suddenly became stronger, which caused me to beg my parents to make it stop. And we decided that I was going to go back on the risperidone, but we would try a different brand without the food dye in, because we were almost certain that the food dye was what was causing that reaction, because I'm so sensitive to it. And when we went to the pharmacy, they were obviously reluctant to give it because they were concerned, but we just knew that it was the food dyes, and we were told that the inactive ingredients wouldn't affect me, but they are still there, and if you're sensitive to something or have an allergy to something, it's still going to affect you. So we finally got a brand that didn't have the food dye in, and as soon as I started taking it, I felt the urge to tic melt away, and it helped a lot for about a year, which is good because I had no side effects that were neurological or psychiatric. And that kind of shows that it was the food dye, and a food dye sensitivity can cause a severe reaction, but also hides in medications and stuff. But that also does make it really inconvenient if you have to get a medication and then you find out it has food dyes in. But yes, I think that week was probably one of the worst weeks of my life. My Tourette's was severe anyway, but because of going on that risperidone, we didn't know it had food dyes in. Unfortunately, it did cause a lot of massive issues, and I had to go with a lot less sleep, and it was just the constant crying I think was the main issue, and the severe sensory issues. But thankfully that did pass because we found out what it was. And the moral of this story is, the first one is, look out for the inactive ingredients in medications, because if you have sensitivities to certain substances or allergies that can trigger neuroinflammation, neurological and psychiatric symptoms, then you do have to look out for them in medications because they can still affect you a lot. And 2, know that a food dye sensitivity is relatively common in the Tourette's community, as well as obviously other conditions, and that if you do experience sort of symptoms such as rage attacks, meltdowns, extreme anxiety, constant crying, behavioural issues, emotional regulation issues, so many things a food dye sensitivity can trigger, but it's worth looking into because it's not well known, but it's common, and it can also be a tic trigger, so worse than some people's tics. But of course, there are a multitude of other triggers and a multitude of other food sensitivities. But because food dye sensitivity is one that often gets missed out, it is something that does need to be looked into, as some people are highly sensitive to it, and it does trigger very, very severe reactions. So I'm just incredibly grateful that my mum found it when I was 3 years old. Number 3, of course, see a doctor when you're on medications, and don't trust the answer it's just stress, because if you know you've started a medication and something's happened, then it's not really a coincidence. And also, you do need to, obviously if you're on medication, you'll probably be seeing a doctor, so hopefully you'll be able to get regular blood tests and stuff as well to check for any side effects. And number 4 is trust yourself, because we knew that the food dye was what was triggering the reaction, and if we hadn't tried the other brand of risperidone, then it would have been a lot worse. So thankfully we did find a better brand without the dye in. So trust yourself, because you know yourself best, you know your family best, and you know what's most likely causing a reaction or an issue, and therefore you can fix that, rather than just saying, oh well, we just won't medicate, because of course it's a personal choice. But if you find something that helps but you're allergic to it, then you have to go around that, know what's causing reaction, and then move on to something that works better to avoid that. So I hope this video helped, and remember to look for the inactive ingredients. Thank you for watching. Bye!